Okay. L'chaim, l'chaim, l'chaim. Can you hear me?
Yep, yep.
L'chaim, l'chaim v'livrocha. I'm going to start with a beautiful story. When I was a child, you can hear me?
Yeah.
Sasson, you can hear me? Yes? Okay, good, good.
Yes,
When I was a child, we davened in Crown Heights in the Pinker Stiebel. And that's what happened one time. The Rebbe wanted that none of the shuls should close down. And we're talking about in the 70s, the 80s, and there was a struggle to keep the shuls opened. Like the Frankel shul that we have down a couple of blocks, they left like Crown Heights, and what was so their shul easily could have closed down, and it's a ton. There's like 50 shuls around Crown Heights. They all would have closed down, and that we didn't want any of the shuls to close down. So he asked young Elijah to go daven in each shul. There was like a minion in each shul. This shul was a very special shul, the Spinker Stiebel. They named it for the Menachem Nochem Prager, a father-in-law of Rabbi Greenwald. So I like to start the Farbrengen, L'chaim, L'chaim. I like to start the Farbrengen with a story from the first Spinker Rebbe. Today there is branches and branches, a tremendous amount of Spinker Chassidism. I wanted to share a story from the first Pinker Rebbe. He had a tish, was Tu B'Shvat, Chamisha B'Shvat, in Romania. I am very sorry. I'm Baruch Hashem on video and on audio again. Um, so the so the story was Ayid come in, and he didn't look like one of the Chassidim, and he came with a huge basket of fruit. And the Spinker Rebbe was so excited, he asked him to come sit by the dish, and he brought a big basket of fruit. The way everyone's sitting with coats, it looks like either the steam was not really fixed, or we didn't take any l'chaim, or maybe a little bit of both. Side the steam is not working, and side nishginam l'chaim. Okay, so l'chaim, l'chaim, l'chaim. So the Tibet and the Yid, the Shekuman, he brought a big basket of fruits, and the Pinker Rebbe was very warm to him. At the end of the Tish, the Chassidim wanted to know what was the story with this Yid, why he was Eicha, that the Rebbe, took his basket of fruits, and at the gegeben says it's Neubenon. So he said that what happened was he was a German Jew, many generations, and the parents, were involved in Haskalah, grandparents, great grandparents. He was a secular Jew, knew very little about Judaism, and he had an opportunity to buy a small textile company in Romania. So he bought the company and he moved to Romania, and the business was going pretty good. And he expanded the company. There was once someone offered him to sell him shmatas, merchandise that he could, material, a huge shipment of material for a steal of a deal. Too good to be true. You know what? Sometimes when it's too good to be true, it's not true. He was so excited about the deal, and at night they signed documents. He signed documents that he took delivery, and he was so excited. He was so excited at a celebration. And the next day, he was sitting in his office, And the seller comes to him. He says, "We did the delivery, but you never paid for the merchandise." He says, "What do you mean never paid? I paid you yesterday for the merchandise." He shows them the documents where the businessman signs that he took delivery, but the seller never signed that he got the money. But it was fraud. He paid the money. So now he got so angry, he kicked the guy out of his office. The guy said, "Okay, sure, we'll see you in court." And he realized that he's in trouble. After the guy left, he went out of his office to catch a little fresh air, and he bumps into one of the Spinker Chassidim. And instinctively, he was a Yid, and he felt close to another Jew, and he tells him that he's in trouble. He's in big trouble. Chaim l'chaim. So the Chassid says, "Well, what's if you have such a trouble, you should have to go to the Spinker Rebbe. This is where you are. You're in his city." Well, he didn't know about it, Rebbe, but he heard, and the Chassid explained to him. I told him with excitement, all kinds of about things about the holiness of the Spinker Rebbe and this kedusha and miracles he made. Okay, he decided he's going. He come to the Spinker Rebbe, and the Spinker Rebbe asks him. He tells the Spinker Rebbe the trouble that he's in. He's in big trouble. Instead of making a ton of money, he's now losing a ton of money. In trouble. So the Spinker Rebbe asks him, "No, what's with Shabbos?" He hardly knew what Shabbos is. He says, "What are you talking about? Shabbos? I make great deals. This is the day where I do a big part of my business." Okay. Spinker Rebbe tries from a different avenue. He says, "Okay, how about kosher?" He says, "Kosher? Well, I don't know. It's not my thing, and it's too complicated for me." And tefillin, you put on tefillin every day. Tefillin takes a minute. You wrap the tefillin and you say Shema. Guarantee, give me your hand that you're going to put on tefillin every single day, and Hashem is going to take care of you too. So said the Jew, he saw the words coming out of the heart. He felt the sincerity, and he gave his hand to the Rebbe. He said he's going to put on tefillin every day. It wasn't easy. He kept it every day. He put on tefillin. And if he had a good feeling in his heart, he felt that the tzaddik meant it, and there's nothing to worry about. And the day in court ended up being Tu B'Shvat. He showed up without a lawyer, without anything. The other side stood up and showed the judge that the documents he had. He made delivery. This guy signed that he got the delivery, but he never paid. And the Yid got up and he said, "Look, I know I didn't sign, but it was just this guy is a trickster." And he spoke from the heart and he explained the circumstances. And the judge said, "You know what? It's unusual for me to believe someone, but you know what? I see the sincerity of this man. I see he's an honest man. I believe him." And he went out of the court with the upper hand. He won the case. He said, "Ever since then, I started to keep kosher and also keep Shabbos. And I see tremendous success. And today is the year anniversary of that court case, which was last year, B'Shvat. Therefore, I came to the Rebbe to bring him a basket of fruits." So I'd like to start the Farbrengen with this L'chaim L'chaim. B'Shvat is connected to trees, but by the Chassidish Rebbe's, it's connected to the Jew. A Yid is like a tree. There is something very special about Chamisha B'Shvat. It's an old minig to eat fruits, befrat the fruits that were the fruits from Eretz Yisrael. Perish and Eretz Yisrael, which parenthetically, Mitzvah this year, with the summer project, we'll be learning Perek 10, Perek Yud, and Seder B'Tzanenim. all about this, the brachas, who comes first, to do with Shivas Aminim. And there is by many Sfardim, there is a minhag to say special tikkun. There is a sefer that was printed 400 years ago in Venice, and it's a tikkun for, just like we have tikkun leil shus, there is a tikkun liyoim. There's tikkun liyoim Chamisha Asabav. And although among the Ashkenazim it's not so mikubal to do it, but it's a brought in the Magen Avraham Shulchan Aruch, and it's the bottom line is we see that all Yidden have the minhag to eat fruits, especially from the 7 fruits of Eretz Yisrael on Chamish Asabav. I'm sorry, Chamish Asar B'Shvat to B'Shvat. And in Chassidus, the idea of a minhag is very powerful. There is, just like when we have Hakofas, that the dancing is with such unbelievable simcha, because we have the simcha de Reise of Sukkot. Then we have a bigger simcha Beis HaShe'eva, which is Divrei Kabbalah. But then we have the minig Yisrael of Hakofas, there is the biggest minig, and the biggest simcha. Because the simcha, there is a simcha when we do a mitzvah deraisa. There's a simcha when we do a mitzvah derabanan. And the biggest simcha is when we do a derabanan, a minig. Because in the minig, there's something very, very deep. So the Rebbe says that the minig of eating the fruits on Tu B'Shvat is something very, very dear to all Klal Yisrael. And this is what we're doing tonight. And one of the things is that it's connected to us. It's connected to us because ha'odam eitz hasadon. The Gemara says Talmud Chacham ha'ogun. Sometimes the tree doesn't grow so good, but if you go to a good expert at trees, you can straighten out tree too. We have one in Beis Menachem Mendel. So So even if the tree is very tall and the tree is 50 years old, we have a gentleman our shul who has equipment. You can straighten it out. You can fix up the tree, even if it's a 50-year-old tree. Sometimes we think we're already an old tree, and that can be fixed. It could be fixed. It could be fixed. Every yid is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful tree. Okay. So L'chaim, welcome everyone for this very, very B'Shevat Farbrengen. Really, I was hoping to be together with everyone in Beis Menachem Mendel. I'm taking a small vacation with the children. The vacation, the headaches, the Sienna vacation, but okay, it's vacation. Hopefully the kids will have a good time and it'll be good. But Thursday, I just want to make an announcement. Thursday, I'm going to be there, Mitzvah Shem. We're having all the regular shurim. I don't want to miss out this. I want to finish some Ereishon Gimel, and I'd like to start next Simon. So Bli Neder will do the shurim this week as regular. Thursday night, we're having a Mitzvah Shem Asudas Mitzvah, and we're going to do a Siyum Rambam. Okay, I have copies here. Do you have the copies? Nicht, whatever. If you have the copies, a good nicht. Do you have the copy of the Sikha? This was really a mimer that Rebbe said. I have to say, the Farbrengens, the Chamisha also B'Shvat, the beautiful Farbrengens. To me, a lot of Farbrengens is childhood memory. So just the special feeling that there used to be a beautiful long dish in front of the Rebbe with grapes hanging over the sides. This is just something, a very, very special feeling with the Farbrengen of Chamisha B'Shvat. There's a mimer that the Rebbe said in one of the Farbrengens, Tavshin Lamed. There's several very, very geschmacka maimonim. We once did the mimer of Tavshin Lamed. That's when the Rebbe started the campaign of Miftzah Torah. But anyway, tonight I want to do a mimer of Tavshin Lamed. Do you have the copies? No? Okay. Mach nicht das. Nicht ist nicht. I made the copies. I did. Okay. Tran, the Bereish Meseches Rosh Hashanah. This is this is really a mimer. It's just that they worked it out to be a sicha. They worked and worked and worked, and they turned it into a sicha. But the aside of this is it's a Farbrengen from the Rebbe, which starts with Arba Rosh Hashanah Meim Bechem Nissen Rosh Hashanah Lamalachim L'Regol. That the first day of Nisan is a Rosh Hashanah for kings, and also for the Yom Tovim, because Nisan is the beginning of Yom Tovim. By the way, when we talk about a king, so we know that the Rebbe had a big koch, that every Yid is B'nei Melech. Every Yid is a Ben Melech. Because it's the Gemara in Shabbos, what Shimon Beichai said, that Yidden are B'nei Melachim, you have to be very careful with them. They're called B'nei Melachim. But the Rebbe says that the Zohar HaKodesh, so every Yid is called a Ben Melech. And we know the Baal Shem Tov said that the Eibishter loves every Yid, the Eibishter loves every Yid more than parents love their child. If they, for years, they didn't have children, and their old age, they had one Ben Yochid, and they loved this child so dearly, the Rabban Shalom loves every Yid even more than that. The Ava from the Rabban Shalom to Yid is unbelievable. So every Yid is called a Ben Melech. Every Yid is a Yoirish. Chas v'shalom, how can you say a Yoirish to the Eibishter? But still, we say that we got Torah from the Eibishter, B'Torah's Matona, B'Torah's Yerusha. So it's not the regular Yerusha. Usually, the Yerusha means when the father passes on. But still, right, the Torah we find the Lashon Matoni Yerusha. Every Yid is a Ben Yochid, who's a Yorish from Eibush. Yet the Tikkun Zohar says, "Iskeriu Yisrael Malach." Yidden are called kings, not only Bnei Malachim. So the Rebbe asks, where do we find, this is not the Maimah yet. We didn't get to the Maimah. We didn't start the Maimah yet. This is intro. So the Rebbe asks, where is that mocker from Nigla? There has to be a mocker for Nigla to this. How do we know this? The Rebbe said there's a story, the Alter Rebbe, when he was in jail the second time, there was a man who was a wealthy man, and he was a Misnagid, and he wanted to make shalom between Chassid and Misnagdim. He told the Alter Rebbe that he could get his case acquitted. A story, there was a new king appointed the first day that he's on his throne. The cases that come in front of him, he's mata klape chesed. He'll organize that the Alter Rebbe will be one of the first cases coming from the king's desk. But no, the Alter Rebbe will travel to 3 of the G'dayla Misnagdim, try to make shalom. The Alter Rebbe said 100%, be happy to do it. And one of the 3 G'dayla Yisrael was Reb Heschel Tzeitlin. Reb Heschel Tzeitlin. I know you because I'm always smiling about this because my anicle is Heschel Tzeitlin. And I keep on telling my machutin that he should find out if it's true that his family, because the name is Yeshua Heschel Tzeitlin, that's his name. He was a Talmud of the Shagas Aya. He was so my machutin asked me what difference it make if we come. I said, "It's make a big difference," because besides being a Moirike Talmud Chacham, he was a super wealthy man. Maybe you could lay hands on some nice Yerusha. Anyway. Back to the story of Rebbe Heschel Tzeitlin, when the Alter Rebbe came to see Rebbe Yeshua Heschel Tzeitlin. We asked it. The Alter Rebbe, it says in Tanya that the Torah with Ava V'Yid is Porchel Eila, flies up in heaven. If it not, it doesn't fly up in heaven, right? But the Chassidim it's a Dava Pashut, The Torah, we grow up with the story of the B'Shem Tov. B'Shem Tov came into Beis Medrash, Snagdim, learning. He said, "Oh, this place is full of Torah." So they were so excited, they were thrilled what the B'Shem Tov said. And then the B'Shem Tov explained he meant to slide Parchel Eila, it's not flying up to heaven. So the Beis Medrash is full of Torah. So the Heschel Tzeitlin asked the Alter Rebbe, what's the mocker? Rebbe said, what do you mean? It's a Zoya. He said, come on, give me a mocker and a nigla the Torah. Everything can't just bring a mocker from the Zoya. I want to have a mocker and nigla the Torah. The Alter Rebbe said, what are you talking about? It's a Gemara Mefureshes. It's Befedish in Gemara. Rav Heschel said, wait a minute, let me think. He thought through Shas. The person was to think through Shas. Which Masechta? That was a Psach. Thinks through Masechta Psach. He says, sorry, which daf? Daf Nun. The Alter Rebbe started to say the Gemara, Ksiv ki godel ad shamayim chazdecha, uksiv ki godel me al shamayim chazdecha. So one side, Pasuk says that the chesed is ad shamayim, and the other one is me al shamayim, higher than the shamayim. And the Gemara says, so it's a contradiction. The Gemara answers, okay, it said, kam boisen lishma, kam boisen shalai lishma. If it's lishma, it's mal shamayim, it goes straight up into the heaven. But if it's shalai lishma, it's at shamayim, it doesn't penetrate the heaven, it stays down under the heaven. And Yeshua Heschel Seitlin said, you're right. I can't believe it. That happens when you learn Torah lishma. You see it, you see things clearly. The Rebbe said there must be a market in Nigla the Torah that besides a Yid being a ben melech, then a Yid is a melech. Again, we're talking about the first Mishnah, Rosh Hashanah, which is the Shredesh Nissen is Rosh Hashanah l'Malach for kings. And the Rebbe says it's simple. Every Yid is a melech. How do we know that? Because in Nigla the Torah, the Gemara says, Rabbanan ikru malachim d'ksiv, bli malachim yimloichu. The Gemara says that the Talmid Chachamim are called a king, because the Pasuk says, bli malachim yimloichu, that the Torah says that you become a king through learning Torah. And because every Yid has to learn Torah, so Mistam every Yid is Talmid Chacham. So therefore, every Yid is a melech. What's so special when every Yid is a melech? Because the Rebbe says the teva is that a melech makes war. And Asher Yitzim v'Asher Yevim says that Tzemach Tzedek, the king, helps the Yidden to go out and war against the Yetzer Hara. As we know, the Gemara says, the Pasuk says in Kehelas, that there is a little city, Anoshim B'Ma'at, and there was a melech that came and laid siege against the city, that Ma'idek Yektana Anoshim B'Ma'at, Yektana Zaguf, V'lo Melech Godel, V'sava versus a Yetzer Hara, which is called the Melech Zokin Uksil, Umotza Ba'ish Miskem V'chochem Ze Yetzer Toiv, V'mila Tasir B'chachmas V'shuva Ma'izim Toivim. That's what the Gemara says in the Dorim. So the Rebbe says, so how do you encounter the Melech Zokin Uksil? He's a foolish king, but he keeps on tricking us. He keeps on tricking us. We think we're getting into good deals. We get into very bad deals. And he keeps on tricking us. So the Noyag Sheba Olam is that sometimes there's a rebellion that happens from the people, but usually war is melech against melech. When a Yid stands up like a melech, when a Yid finds that he's really a melech, that's when he finds the power to knock out the Yetzer Hara. Otherwise, he's like a nirdif. He's like a yokel. He keeps on being tricked by the Yetzer Hara. When he finds that he's a melech, he stands up and he fights back. There's another nakuda the Rebbe says about a melech, and but before we go to that nakuda, I just want to get to the maimer. I'll do a little bit of kitzer of the maimer because you don't have the copies, so we'll just do a nakuda of the maimer. The nakuda of the maimer is that the beginning of the Mishnah talks about Rosh Chodesh for Malachim and a Golem. And the end of the Mishnah talks about Chamisha Asar B'Shvat, which is Rosh Chodesh Lilonis. What's the connection? No, it's Tchilos and B'Soifa, and what's the connection of these two things? And also, what's the connection in Rosh Chodesh Nisan Gufa, which is the beginning of Masechus Rosh Hashanah, which has two things, Rosh Hashanah L'Malachim and Rosh Hashanah L'Regolem. So the Rebbe says like this. You know, if you go to Israel and you go to the kibbutzim, My mechuten, we just went to Pittsburgh for the last two Sheva Brachsen. So my mechuten, the Bala Tshuva, and he was a child. He grew up in the north in a kibbutz in the Shomer HaTzair. You remember? They didn't even live. He didn't live in his parents' house. They lived. He lived at the age of 7 years old. He lived in the dormitory. Also, sehr klug. This was the style back then in the kibbutzim. So he said, but in the kibbutz, kosher manish gehat, gadaven manish gedavent. But he remembers that Shabbos morning they had sweet cereals. Friday night they made a very special meal for Shabbos. Everyone in the kibbutz came dressed nicely. They played games afterwards. It was relaxed. Shabbos, Shabbos. If you go to a secular school in Israel, unfortunately, when they teach the children about the Shalosh Regalim, the holidays, Pesach, Shavuos, Sukkot, it is taught very differently than it's taught in the Hamish Chadorim. It's all about the harvest, and you know what? It's also true. If you look in the Rabbeinu Bachaya, if you look even in the Panim Yofas from the Pinchas Horovitz, the Baal HaFlo, the friend of the Alter Rebbe, the Yomim Tovim are connected to the harvest. Like the Rabbeinu Bachai says, Lo hoides la Hashem ha-mefarnes avodov. The Eibishter made three Yomim Tovim. One is Chodesh HaOviv, and that's why we always manipulate the calendar, because we want it to be that Pesach should be in the time of Oviv, which is the time when we start to plant. Then there is Shavuos, which is Ketzir Chitim. Not only the barley is ready, but now also the wheat is ready. And then there is Sukkot, which is Chag Osif, which is Be'ospacha, when you bring back from the field into the warehouses before the winter, you bring back all the produce and you stock it up in your warehouses for the long bitter winter. The three Yom Tovim. If you go to Israel in the public schools, what's the three Yom Tovim? It's not about lulav esrik. It's not about charoises, hamor and matzah, and it's for sure not about cheese blintzes. But rather it's about the harvest. But it's also true that the Torah made that the three Yom Tovim are connected to the harvest. What's the connection of harvest? I understand why, Tu B'Shvat Chag La'ilan. But there was by Eden, it was always called Chamisha Osa B'Shvat. And like the little bit of a damper that happened to like they got a little bit of a bad rap, Chamisha Osa B'Shvat, because it was so used in Israel in a fadreta way. But Chamisha B'Shvat was and always will be from the Zman HaMishnah, from the Arba Rosh Hashanah, and Api Minig is all celebrated. And we don't say Tachem, even Mincha Shalafonov, we don't say Tachem. So just because it's being used in Israel as by the Zionists, Sevet Nashtois Inyan. What is it up Chassidus? What's up shot that the three Yom Tovim have to do with the harvest? Because the Yid is Kodesh Yisrael Reishis Tvos Zarati Li Ba'oretz Chazal say Klum Adam Zareh Kur Lahachnas Kama Kurim. Why does a person plant one kur to get 10 kur? He's not going to plant one kur to get a half a kur. The reason why and the Shama comes, Migre Ramal Beira Mikta Yerida Zu Tzorech Aliyah Asher Kol Ze Hu Kedai Yerida Zu Tzorech Aliyah Asher kol ezehu kidai. The reason the neshama comes down to this world because neshama says, "Ach tzoyekes vayevai, ach tzoyekes vayevai." The neshama complains. The neshama screams, "Vay vay, not fear. Why are you sending me down?" They tell the neshama that the yirida zu tzorech aliyah asher kol zehu kedai, that it's kedai because there's going to be an unbelievable aliyah. That's like the idea of planting. In the inyan of planting gufa, there is in the inyan of planting gufa, there is two nekudas. So by the way, so that's why the Yom Tovim have to do with planting, because it's three nekudas in planting, and it has to do with with the neshama coming down and that were planted the neshama into this world, and you need the Tzorech Aliyah. There's two nekudas that we find in Chassidus. Number one, the Alter Rebbe says in Likutei Torah that it doesn't grow from the seed. It grows from the seed when the seed rots. That's how it grows. It becomes a Eichus Chadosh Anayazach because the seed rots. Now, Avodas Hashem means nothing happens before Yid has bittul. Psach libe b'soyrasecha. Oh, how do you get there? Nafshika for lakaltia. First Yid is bittul, and then psach libe b'soyrasecha. So that's number one. Number one is that a Yid has to have bittul. Number two, a Yid has to have simcha. Hazorim b'dima b'dina yiktzayrim. It has to be. So the simple pshat is Zorim Bedimet, Geweint, it was so hard. It's hard. Finally, when you have no Samesha Chazora, Sabayov Verino. The Rebbe says, no, that's not the pshat. Because there has to be a pritzes gather, we want an unbelievable success. Simcha's part is gather, therefore it has to be through Simcha. So there's two nekudas. There's the Indian of Bittel and Simcha. Bittel and Simcha we find very much. Number one in the Shalosh Regalim. Regel is Meloshin foot. There's the idea of Kabbalah Salam Al Shemayim. Regel symbolizes not that he does it because he understands, because he feels, because that's what Abish said to do, Kabbalah Salam Al Shemayim. And that's what's called Shalosh Regalim. And that's a Chazal say, Aroi Lalvas Beraglev Chayiv, Chiyav HaKosov, Chiyav Beraglev, Potem and Arish, Never Regalim. So regel is the idea of Kabbalah Sal. The other hand, Smaydel Simcha. So that's the nekuda that Rosh Hashanah, L'Regalim and L'Malachim have in common. Also, by a melech, the idea of why is a melech? A melech, the whole idea of a melech is to help a yid have bittul. To help the yid should have bittul, Kabbalah Sal to Meibish. Tzemach Tzedek says in the Maimer Minu Melech. The Maimer Minu Melech. What's the idea of a melech? Why do we need to have a melech? Why was Shmuel upset that he didn't want a melech? Because they didn't want it for the right reason. What's the right reason to want a melech? Is to help a yid have Kabbalah Sel Malchus Shemayim. Bittul. And that's why we need to have a melech. Chazal says that the melech, once he bows by Shemoneh Esrei, he doesn't. He doesn't stand up again. I'm sorry. The Rebbe says the diuk here is it's not a haloch, it's a metzius. It's not a haloch. If you have to tell the king to be bottled to Eibishter, it's bad news. David the Melech find big tzaddikim malachim that Libi Chol Bekirbi, Yeshafat, that Rambam says that they had unbelievable bittul. The Melech has to be, his heart has to be bottled to the Eibishter. On the other hand, a Melech has a big toikef. We said before, a Melech stands up. A Melech has war. When we are king in our house, we trounce the Yetzer Hara. They're not two separate things, says the Rebbe. When a person has unbelievable bittul to Eibishter, then he has the toikef, because if it's me, Big guy. Oh, you're gonna start with me? Who do you think you are? Who you? But we're feeble human beings, and then when some we have weak moments, and we're nothing, and we melt, kadoinik, like wax. So if the tkifas comes from us, so when we melt, there's nothing left of us. But if our tkifas comes because of our bittul zum Eibishten, Eved Melech Melech, so then there's nothing. There's nothing that can melt us. So then our tkifas is very, very, very strong. We have unbelievable strength. So that's the Indian of a melech. So the sholosh the golem is the Indian of bittul and samcha, and the melech is also the same thing. And that is also the idea of Chamisha Asa B'Shvat. Chamisha Asa B'Shvat. And there's something special about Chamisha Asa B'Shvat. We spoke about this many times. Boyd in the Foshas Rabbas v'Chesroina. Al kol masha b'rotza lahachio is b'hem nefesh kol choy. Zog de Bach. In Semereish Zayin. There is Chesroina. Things that people need. You can't live without food. But you could eat porridge, you could eat bread and butter. So beside it, you could live. But there is the union of tainug. They wish to make fruits. And the Rebbe says that you see also B'Muchesh that the things that grow, the seeds that grow like wheat, barley, so on. So the return is quick. You plant it, and if 2 months later you have stalks of wheat growing, but it's not such a ribui and it's not so geshmak. The trees, you have to water it, you have to work really hard, and it takes a long time till you get the results. But for one seed, you get tens and tens of thousands of apples. An apple tree could live 50, 60 years. And every year, from that one seed every year comes 1,000 apples. 50 years is 50,000 apples. Also, it's more geshmak. So here in the Elon and in the Elon we see even more that there has to be a rikoven, bittul, and then there's an unbelievable simcha because it's tainuk. It has to do with pleasure. Al kamasha brasal hachir behem to give extra chayis na geshmak. And therefore, this is the connection between the Shalosh Regolim, which is the first Rosh Hashanah, and the last Rosh Hashanah, which is Chamisha Asar B'Shvat. What's the bottom line? What is the Avodah Vayid? What do we learn from here? The Avodah Vayid is simple. The Avodah Vayid is K'Adam Eitz HaSoda. The Gemara says Adam Eitz HaSoda is a Talmud Chochem Hagum. Ayid has to be a Talmud Chochem Hagum. And in order to be that, we have to put in a lot of work. It's not just like planting wheat and barley. It's like planting apple trees and grape trees, grapevines, and they have to put in a lot of koiches, but tremendous simcha afterwards. Is azorim bedima yiktzoyda. And yesh loyman that this is another connection, although this is not the word nasicha, that when a yid's avodas Hashem is he learns Torah with unbelievable dedication, amelim b'Torah, yagato matzasa, and he learns it mitech tainug. So then he becomes Taka Melech. So then there's another connection between Rosh Hashanah Melachim and Chamisha Asa B'Shvat. So l'chaim, and it's Hashgacha Elyoina, unbelievable Hashgacha Elyoina, that this year on Chamisha Asar B'Shvat is also the Siyum HaRambam. We're completing the cycle of 45 cycles of learning Rambam in 3 prakim, and we also 15 cycles of learning Rambam in Perek Echad L'Yom. Shabbos, when we spoke about this, Nachman Doi Vichnen and also Yossi Mizrahi mentioned about two shiurim online that you could download that are Mosek Medvash. Nachmadov mentioned from Rabbi Refson, Zechroin Levracha, who was a dying and a shliach for many, many years in Leeds, England. And Yossi Mizrahi also mentions a shir from a shliach, Resnick in California, who does like 8 minutes to 10 minutes of Pedic, and you can put in double speed; it'll become 5 minutes. So I'm going to ask Peretz if he could please post it in Mitzvah Hashem tomorrow. If you want to jump into the new cycle, the Rambam, there's no better way to do it. Chamishas B'Shvat is all about Kabbalah, Toiva, about learning Torah, Godem Eitz Hasoda, Talmud Chochem Hogun. The emphasis Taka, there's advertisements for learning Shas, but there's something special about learning Rambam. Rambam, you learn Kol HaTorah Kula. There's no other sefer which has Kol HaTorah Kula, Kol HaTorah Kula Mamish. Starting like we spoke about Shabbos, 6 mitzvahs Tvidia, Sefer Mada, which is Moed de Gishmak. And like I said, Shabbos, everyone is an expert in Ashkofa. From was meint hat verstanden from Rabbi Yeruchim's Musserschmus, wenn gewinnt a Bach in Yeshiva, so gewonnen schon he became an expert in Ashkofa. Everyone is an expert in Ashkofa. Everyone in Yeshiva Welt is an expert in Ashkofa. The Bismillah line in the Rambam Sefer Amada. And then we realize how not so experts we are. But once we learn it, then we talk and become an expert. Mamish, you learn Kol HaTorah Kula. Kol HaTorah Kula. Baruch Hashem, there's 3 cycles. There's a cycle of 3, one Perek Sefer HaMitzvahs. My children, I'm very proud to say that my children are learning Sefer HaMitzvahs. It makes an unbelievable difference. So they know Kol HaTorah Kula. Kol HaTorah Kula. My daughter, Baruch Hashem, she was in the competition and she got a trophy, a gold trophy and a silver trophy and a bronze trophy. So she knows Kol HaTorah Kula. The way this is, he can say größer Talmid Chacham ben Yeshiva, but he doesn't know what's das Malika and what's and what is it and what's Egla Rufa. Kol HaTorah Kula. So L'chaim, it's a Shgochal Yonah that the 45th cycle that ends up that the Siyum should be a Chamishas B'Shvat. It's hard to, it's not hard. It's easy to imagine if we were having now Farbrengen in 770 and the Rebbe was Farbrengen L'Kavod the Siyum Rambam, the Shturim, the fire that would be. So L'chaim, that we should be Zoicha Taka, the Abiyas Meshitz at Kenu, Tzitchis HaMesim, and the Taka, we should hear the Hadran, the 45th Hadran, we should hear from Lubavitcher Rebbe himself. L'chaim. So forth, Chodesh Shvat. So let's be Messiah with the Nigun of the Beinani. Ya. This is Yud Beis Yud Gimel Tamas. Nigun, someone help me with the. La da dam, da di dim, da, ya da, ya da, ya da, ya da, ya, ya, ya da. Oh, ya la da, ya da, ya da. Oh, ya da, da. Oh, ya da, da, da. Oh, ya. Oh, ya da, ya da, ya da, da. Oh, ya da. Oh, ya. Oh, ya da. Oh, ya la da. Oh, ya da, ya da, ya da. Ay la rai, oh yera yera yera, ay la rai, oh yera yera yera, ay ay yo yo yo. Okay, l'chaim l'chaim l'chaim. Nu mit auf tanzen, nu mal lodet, ey ja es Hashem, kamayim la yom, echastif, nu mal lodet, ey ja es Hashem, kamayim la yom, echastif, nu mal lodet, ey ja es Hashem, kamayim yom, echastif, nu mal lodet, ey ja es Hashem, Vayim la yom mechasim. Tzvinu umol haaretz. Deya es Hashem kamayim la yom mechasim umol haaretz. Deya es Hashem kamayim la yom mechasim l'chaim l'chaim l'chaim. Der was noch nicht gemacht a bracha chroine, wird sich gemacht a bracha chroine. Remember, if you ate from the Shiva Saminim, so there's Allah Eitz, Val Priya Eitz. Shkach for joining us. Remember, Thursday night, this week, all the shurim are regular schedule. Thursday night, there'll be a Sudas Mitzvah, Siyum and Rambam. David, make sure you get yourself a pastrami sandwich for Thursday night. Okay, good night.
I have